What up guys? Today we're gonna talk about a very interesting topic because it's something that most probably you cannot know for yourself and you need a dealer to tell you that. We're gonna talk about how easy is it to sell different Rolex models. For example, the Submariner, Yacht-master, the Daytona, the 1908. We will talk about the different models and how easy or hard it is to sell them on the gray market. And this will also show you how easy or hard it is for you to sell it to a dealer if you want to sell it. So we will start with the probably most popular model of Rolex, or at least one of the most popular, and that's gotta be the Rolex Datejust. And I'm gonna talk about the 36 and the 41 because there's not much of a difference. Some prefer the smaller one, some prefer the bigger one. That determines if it's easy to sell or not are three things. It's the bezel, the bracelet, and the dial. And if we are going into detail, I will tell you that the easiest dials to sell are the mint green, the gray one, then the black one, then the blue one, and then everything else. A specific dial that is really hard to sell is the Azzurro blue dial, the blue Roman dial. It's hard to sell. Always when you go with a Rolex, it's always harder to sell it if it has Roman numerals. It's easier to sell it with the stick dial, and the diamond dial is also not so easy. So the easiest one is gonna be the stick dial always. The next thing is the bracelet. People prefer on the Datejust always the Jubilee bracelet. This is, especially for the 41mm Datejust, not very clear to know if you're gonna sell it good or bad, because for the 36 I would say it's hard to sell the Oyster bracelet. For the 41 model it's, I would say, a little harder to sell it with the Oyster bracelet. So it's more popular with the Jubilee. I'm not gonna deny it, but even with the Oyster bracelet, you can find someone that is willing to put in the money. And the thing that determines if you're gonna sell a Datejust easy or if you have to go into stronger fights and price fights with other dealers is the bezel, because everybody, or at least the big majority of people, will always prefer the fluted bezel over the smooth one. So if you have the smooth one, Oyster bracelet and blue Roman dial, that's a watch that's hard to sell, and therefore we need to buy it more carefully. That doesn't mean that I'm not gonna buy it. It doesn't mean that I will buy it for a really unfair price. It's just, I just have to consider that this is a model that I may have to keep in stock a little longer. This is something that I need to consider before buying it as a dealer, because obviously, I want to sell quick and with a good margin, but it needs to be fair for both sides. That's absolutely important, because only happy clients will come back again for selling or buying other watches. So now we will go to the next model, and that's gonna be the Submariner. And the Submariner is always a watch that you can sell easily. That's also a watch that we have almost no room for negotiation. That's a watch that you don't have in stock for too long. So as soon as you see it on our shop or in any other shop of a trusted dealer, you gotta be quick, because it can be gone within a few days. Especially if we're talking about old models. The Hulk is, for example, the most popular one, and you can see that also on the market price. But the Starbucks is also very easy to sell, especially MK2, but MK1 is also good. So I would say overall the Submariner is very easy to sell. That's why we pay good money for it, and that's why we also, when we go into price discussions, we don't have much room. So if I'm giving you a 200 or 300 euro discount on a Submariner, that's already a lot for this particular model. So the next watch we're gonna talk about is the Yacht-master 2, and that one is also easy to sell. Mostly. And once again, we have the question, which bezel, like which variety of the Yacht-master 2 lineup do we have, and which bracelet? And the easiest one here is, of course, the Pepsi with the Jubilee dial, then followed by the Pepsi with the Oyster bracelet. Then it's gonna be the Bad Girl, then the Sprite with the Jubilee, then the Bad Man, and then the Sprite with the Oyster bracelet. If we're talking about the Bruce Wayne, that's also a watch that we had in stock a few times, but as the market is not quite stable yet, it's still looking for adjustment. Sometimes the prices go a little up and down. I cannot say if it's gonna be in the end a very stable and very popular model, but I can tell from the older ones that, for example, the Coke is very popular. The black one, the 116710 LN, is a watch that we sell very good. Yacht-masters are also easy to sell. That's also good for you as a client. If you buy it, you know that you can sell it and get good money back for it, and you will not have to look for someone that is willing to buy it for any price. So you can offer it to 10 dealers and 10 dealers will make an offer. The next model I will talk about is the president watch, the most prestigious and most beautiful Rolex model, in my opinion, and that's a day date, of course. And as for day dates, we did not have many day dates of the modern ones in stock yet because we simply don't want to put too much money in it, and we're not big fans of the 40mm model. That's something I can tell you very straightforward. We are bigger fans of the 36mm, and especially we believe that the vintage ones are the real treasures out there. The few modern day dates that we had, the 41 and the 36 one, we sold them very quickly. The day date, if you have a reasonable price, if you're willing to sell it for a fair price, you can sell it pretty easy, but you have to be careful when purchasing it because the preferences for the dials can be depending on which material you have. For example, for the white gold one, you will have to look for a black dial, for example, whereas for the rose gold, you would prefer to go for the Roman olive green dial. Yeah, so it really depends on that, but overall I can say that the day date is easy to sell. It's not something that you have to keep in stock. We never made a loss on a day date, and I think that's not gonna change. As soon as the condition is good, as soon as the watch was bought for a good price, we can sell it also for a fair price and still make a profit out of it. So pretty nice watch. We love day dates. You can tell, I think. The next one I will continue with is, and this is the biggest rival of the day dates if we're talking about prestige, if we're talking about presence, and it's gonna be the Daytona. The Daytona is very popular. You can tell by the list waiting times. So if you want to get a Panda Daytona, for example, you will only get it if you have a good relationship with your AD, or if you are willing to wait a long time or buy other watches as well. So it's hard to get a Daytona for the list price, but on the other hand, it's also easy to sell it if you have it in stock as a dealer. It really, really depends on, even though all of them are easy to sell, I'm not gonna complain, but even though it's very popular, you have to consider that, for example, the ceramic bezel ones sell better than the steel bezel ones. The steel gold models are also harder to sell, of course. As for the white gold models, we had a few of them. They sell very good. The rose gold ones sell very good. The yellow gold ones, we did not have many yet, but they were a little harder to sell. But for all the other ones, easy sell. And I think this is not a big surprise. And now we're gonna continue with another model that is known for its simplicity, how simple it is. It's very clean and very, it's, I think, the most minimalistic Rolex in the current lineup, and it's gonna be the Oyster Perpetual. Even it doesn't matter if we're talking about 41 or 36mm, it's always an easy watch to sell, especially if we're talking about special dials. We had the 41mm with the celebration dial. It sold within, I think, 18 hours. The black dial, for example, is a little harder to sell because even though the Oyster Perpetual is known because it's a very minimalistic watch, people tend to prefer the colorful ones, the green one, the red one, the yellow one, the Tiffany blue one. So the normal ones, the black or blue ones, they are a little harder to sell, but still not really hard to sell. As long as your price is reasonable, you will always find someone that wants to buy this watch because it's understatement. Don't show off too much if you wear it. It's a nice watch. Nobody can say something against that. The next model is a little harder to sell, but it always depends on which variety of the watch you have, as you might imagine. And we're gonna talk about the Yacht-master. It really depends which material you have. I cannot talk about the titanium one. We never had it, and I'm not sure if we would buy it if we ever got offered one. Probably yes, if the price is right. But for the white gold, for example, for the yellow gold, for the rose gold, I can say that these precious metal models sell very good. Once again, you need to be careful with the price. You cannot buy it too expensive. You cannot price it on the market for too much, but as long as you're fair in your pricing, you sell them. On the other hand, if you have the steel gold ones or even the steel ones, they're a little more tricky to sell. Then it really depends which dial you have. For example, the blue one is on the steel, less popular than the rhodium with the light blue highlights on it. So the rhodium one is the easiest from the steel models. The steel gold models are hard to sell, I'm gonna be honest with you. And then again, you gotta differentiate. Do we talk about yellow gold and steel, or if we talk about rose gold and steel? Rose gold is easier to sell for this model. And that's hard because, for example, if we're talking about other models, the rose gold is often harder to sell. So once again, the Yacht-master it really depends on which variation of the watch you have, of the model you have. But overall, I would say it's not as easy and simple to sell as a Daytona, Yacht-master 2 or Submariner. Then we're gonna talk about a watch that is really hard to sell if you are not competitive in your pricing, and that's the Sea Dweller. The Sea Dweller is the big brother of the Submariner, and therefore not many people can wear it. It's very big, it's chunky, and you can sell it. It's not, I would say it's still a Rolex. In the end of the day, you can still sell it fairly easy, but you need to be really, really careful with the price. People are very sensitive on the price with this watch. On that one, I gotta say, it's one of the harder ones, but it's still easy to sell, if that makes any sense. We gotta continue with an even bigger and chunkier watch, and that's the Deepsea. For the Deepsea, you have the black one and you have the James Cameron. You have also the gold models, but not gonna talk about them. We never had any, and I think we will never buy one. I can only talk for myself, but I don't think it's a beautiful watch. I think it's too much gold. It's a gold block on your wrist. I'm not trying to hate on this model. If you have it, it might look good on you, but I don't think it looks good on many people. And the Deepsea itself depends which dial you have. If you have the James Cameron dial, then the watch is gonna sell extremely fast. We never had a James Cameron for longer than 2 days. On the other hand, if you have the black one, really hard to sell. So for that one, we buy it a lot under market price, because people that want to buy it, they will always argue and say, if I spend this money on that one, why shouldn't I put a little bit more on top and get the James Cameron one? And they are right. Why would you do that? Therefore, the price gap between those two needs to be big enough for people to be tempted to buy the black one. Then we're gonna continue with another watch that's also known for its simplicity, for the understatement aspect, for the minimalism, and it's the Air King. And for the Air King, I know that it was always underappreciated, and I still believe it is. It's easy to sell it. It's easy to get it for a fair price from the private client. I cannot say too much about it. It's easy to sell, and I said it in a lot of videos already. The Air King is an undervalued watch. If you're looking to buy a Rolex sports model, go for an Air King, because I believe that once it's discontinued, the price will go up again. Then we will talk about the Rolex Explorer. And the Explorer 1 is a watch that we had in the past a few times, and we sold it fairly good. We never had big problems selling it. It also really depends which size you have, because if you had the 39mm size, that was a watch that was a little harder to sell always. It's discontinued. We're not going to talk too much about it, but the 36mm one is a good alternative to the Datejust. Many people like it because of its also because it's very easy to read. It's a very understatement, minimalistic watch, just as the Oyster Perpetual and the Air King. Also a watch that we never had trouble selling. And then we will continue with the Explorer 2. And with the Explorer 2, I can tell you that the white one, the polar one, is the easier one. And that's not a big surprise. You can see it in the market prices. The white one is always higher valued than the black one. But then once again, it's never really hard to sell an Explorer 2, even if it's a black one. Here you can just easily go with any of those Explorer models. They're all pretty easy to sell. But if I would need to make a suggestion, I would say the polar one is the one that sells itself. You don't even have to put much effort in it. And now we will talk about the last two models, and those are big surprises, I believe. We're gonna start with the Sky Dweller. Even though many people love the Sky Dweller, and it's the most complicated watch that Rolex has right now. It has great complications, it has a nice design, but it is way too chunky for most people. It's way too thick. So that's why I believe this is the problem with the Sky Dweller. That's why we have trouble selling it. Doesn't matter if we had the black dial one, if we had the blue dial with the white dial, if it was steel gold or only steel, Oyster bracelet, Jubilee bracelet. It's always hard to sell a Sky Dweller. And this is the reason why we do not buy them so easily. So if you want to sell us a Sky Dweller, you will probably have to make a trade-in or give us the watch for a very good price, because, for example, we had the Jubilee one with the blue dial. We sold it after, I think, 4 or 5 months with no profit whatsoever, and that's not something that we see as a desirable outcome for this situation as dealers. So that's why the Sky Dweller, in our opinion, is not a very popular watch, even though it has a very big fan community. A lot of people love the Sky Dweller, and I can totally see why. But if you're looking on it with a salesman perspective, not the best watch in the lineup. And I think this is a big surprise, just as much as the model that I will talk about now. And this is gonna be, I think, the most undercover model, the Rolex Cellini. And now I think the new name is 1908. What can I say about it? We will now, in the next few days, get a 1908 in stock. We will see how good it sells. But I can only talk about the previous model, the Cellini, the dress watches that Rolex offered. And many people said, yeah, it's hard to sell. You cannot sell it. It's hard to sell. That's why many dealers suggested to not buy it. And if we buy it for a very, very low price. For us, this watch works pretty well. We sell it good, with good margins, with good sales times. So basically, I think within 2, 3, 4 weeks, we have sold almost every Cellini out there. We had it in white gold, we had it in steel, we had it in yellow gold, with blue dials, with black dials, with silver dials. So we had a pretty big variety of Cellinis in the past, and we never had trouble selling them. That's why we also go one step further and buy now the 1908. And I believe this one will sell also pretty easy, because in the end of the day, if you're looking for a dress watch from Rolex, you can go for a day date, you can go for a datejust, but they are never as dressy and you cannot wear them on the leather strap. So if you're looking to wear a watch on the leather strap, you will automatically have to buy the Cellini or 1908. So I believe that's why we will sell it pretty good, but I will keep you updated. You will see it in the shop in the next few days. And that's pretty much it. I think we talked enough about every model that Rolex offers in their lineup, in their current lineup especially. And we also went into the past models that they have and varieties they had. And in my opinion, a beautiful summary would be that Rolex is always pretty easy to sell. You never have to wait too long, but not every model is the same. Sometimes the big majority of people likes or dislikes a certain variety or variation, and therefore it's harder or easier to sell. So if you offer us a watch and we are not seeing it in the same value as you see it, consider that we have almost sold every model out there. We know how good we sell it and how fast we sell it and for what price we sell it. So that's it. Have a good night.